Welcome to Stocks to Watch, where we look under the hood of promising companies to help you identify good investment opportunities. I am Munir Baraz, your business analyst and host. And today, Saf Dhillon is joining me. Saf is the president and CEO of iMetal Resources, a Canadian exploration company advancing its flagship asset, the Gowganda West Gold Project in Ontario's Abitibi Greenstone Belt, in addition to highly prospective assets. Hello, Saf. It's good to have you with us today.
Hi, Munir. It's good to be here.
Absolutely. So let me get right into it. You've recently finished your fully funded Phase 1 drill program of 2025 at Gowganda West. What have you accomplished so far, and what can you tell us about the geological model and what you've learned about the potential of this property?
Sure. Yeah, Munir. That program actually, it was really intended to, continue building on that early success that we had in 2023 with discovery hole number 4. And that hole, if you recall, we ended up encountering or hitting about 50 meters of a gram of gold in the ground. And the key significance is that this hole actually is roughly less than 1,000 meters, probably something like 700 meters from our neighbors who actually host the Juby deposit. And the Juby deposits are actually a series of multiple deposits. And through the drill bit, they've been extending them and basically consolidating them into one or two deposits in the ground. And I think what our program, we were planning to drill 2,500 meters last year. We ended up actually having a great drill program. Loved working with these drillers, Dia4 out of Quebec. And they actually did a great bang-up job, ended up drilling over 2,600 meters. And really the key, again, like I said, was to demonstrate and build on that early successful drill hole. And our assays are pending in the lab. Today we're at January 22nd. It's probably been about 6 going on 7 weeks. And I think we're probably still maybe a couple of weeks away. So I'm thinking maybe latest February, mid-February, we could have some of these assays. We're pretty excited about that because that's really going to indicate where our next round of work is going to be focused.
Looks really exciting, and you are in a good position now, waiting for the assay results. So how will those results, once they arrive, impact your exploration program?
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Well, actually, I think they're going to be a key indicator. And one of the things I might add is, again, I think I've told you the date. Today is January 22nd, just in case somebody's listening to this podcast or, this interview at a later date. Our neighbors, McFarlane Lake Mining, MLM on the Canadian Exchange, they actually just put out news today. They've actually, in 2025, grown their resource or their mineral resource estimate from about 2.5 million ounces to well over 5. And they also had mentioned throughout 2025 that they still had historical drilling from a couple of previous drill programs that hadn't been assayed, and they hadn't been reviewed and hadn't been released. And they had also announced that they were going to be doing some drilling. So they have put out news today, and I don't want to talk about, I don't want to, state something wrong, but, investors and viewers should look at their news, because the whole theory here has always been, in this Shining Tree camp, it looks like there's potentially a really big structure or a system or multiple systems that are actually related, whether they're one big system or part of multiple systems. But it looks like there's a pretty big story potentially unfolding here with our neighbors that we share a border with. Go check out their news and continue to look for our news. But it looks like they're extending their discovery onto the border with us. And it looks like our potential starts at the border, and we're hoping that this extends further south onto our property. So we're not going to know until we get these assays. And from there, of course, we can build our plan growing from there.
I guess that bodes really well for your property, given that those results are very close to where you are, your neighbors.
It's a 20-minute walk from our discovery hole to, I think, where their deposit right now ends. And I've been to the property a couple of times. And yeah, I think 2026 is going to be a very exciting year for us and our neighbors. And can't wait to get back to drilling again.
And do you have any specific milestones or catalysts that investors should look out for?
I'm not sure if I want to say milestones yet. We have a discovery hole. I think our plan really is to make a new discovery, and we want to make a discovery, build on that discovery hole, make a discovery of a new resource, and potentially grow that resource. And how long that's going to take, I think that's going to depend on how quickly we can get good results, how quickly we can grow the company, and how quickly we can actually finance future drill programs, but do it accretively, keeping mindful of shareholder dilution. So I think it's going to be an inflection year for iMetal Resources. So be on the watch.
Absolutely. And I noticed that you have exposure to different minerals or elements on your properties. You have gold, graphite, and others. How does this impact your portfolio in terms of, for example, costs, where your focus is, potential economics? Is this an advantage?
Yeah, I would say so. I think for a couple of years, the company, commodities, especially precious metals, they were really out of favor. I think over the years, even before my time, I think you would have seen critical minerals. I don't think they were always called critical minerals or battery minerals, if you want to call them, base metals, precious metals. They always kind of went in a wave, and there was kind of a flavor of the day, if you want to call it that, right? But I think that for a couple of years we were really trading at a shell value, and if there was a focus on, say, graphite, we were able to raise some capital and focus on that graphite property. For the last 2 years, I think I mentioned we've been trading basically shell value. We had an opportunity to potentially acquire an asset in Europe, actually specifically antimony in Bosnia. And as we know, antimony, tungsten, these military battery grade minerals, I think are going to be also very important going forward. I think that we're seeing finally in the full spectrum of things that all commodities, I think globally, the world is starting to realize that we have a finite resource of all these commodities, and they're all going to be needed, and there's going to be less and less of them. So I think we were fortunate enough that while we were trading at shell value, that we were trying to de-risk or diversify the company. At some point, if we get to a point where one of these assets is taking on a life of its own, we might do a spin out, or maybe we might do a sale. But I think the key is that I think in the process of trying to de-risk, diversify the company, we now can be sitting in the driver's seat, hopefully being able to make decisions on which direction the company can go, or maybe we can pull in some cash by selling one of the assets or one of the projects. So I really think it's kind of given us a balanced portfolio, and I think it's going to be a fun time, 2026 and beyond.
Yeah, that was what I was going to say. It does offer you a balanced exposure, and it does make iMetal Resources a good vehicle for investors who want to have that kind of balanced exposure. And speaking of investors, I want to hear your elevator pitch. So let's go together in the elevator and let me know about why investors should invest in iMetal Resources.
Okay, Munir. Yeah. iMetal Resources, we're a very dynamic micro cap company. We've got a very tight cap structure, 40 million shares issued and outstanding. Management, insiders, and friendlies probably own close to 60% of the company. We've got, again, exposure, balanced portfolio projects, graphite in Quebec. Already, we've got multiple hits of up to 13% graphite. Could be on our way to making a discovery or identifying a resource there. We've got gold, a discovery of gold at Gowganda West with our neighbors that we share a border with, building on their 5.5+ million ounce gold deposit. We're potentially probably sitting on, who knows, maybe a new discovery right next to them, part of maybe the same system or a different system. But if you've got something that has a multi-million ounce deposit next to it, where's the best place to be drilling for another one? probably right next to it. Like they say in mining, where the geos say, where's the best place to drill for a new discovery? In the head frame of an existing one. And we're basically in the vicinity of a few head frames here. And then, of course, in Europe, if we can secure this antimony project, again, that's a third, I guess, trifecta, if you want to call it. So small micro cap company, you know, poised for some serious growth in 2026, balanced, diversified, and, you know, excited for 2026.
Lots of green flags right there. And I can add,
Yes, sir.
ambitious and flexible, given that you've mentioned the antimony and going into Europe for that purpose, which really also enriches your portfolio. Saf Dhillon, President and CEO of iMetal Resources, thank you so much for sharing those insights with us today. And we look forward to hearing more from iMetal Resources very soon.
Thanks, Munir. Thanks for having me. See you soon.
See you soon.